like, I don't even know how to start this video, but I got a new camera. I'm quite excited because this is a camera I've been wanting for the longest time ever. So basically the videos are going to be on a whole other level, but I'm coming to you guys to thank you. I know I keep thanking you guys a lot, but thank you guys for always coming back to watch my videos. Yeah, so this was like sort of like what, a mini reintroduction of myself with my new camera. Yeah, but this has been a video that I've been wanting to shoot for a while now, and thank you guys for those that responded to my Instagram when I ran a poll sometime on whether you guys would like to hear about some of these issues we go through as women, especially in regards to our sexual reproduction and all that stuff. Yeah, so this particular video I'll try to touch on most of those topics without going into too much detail either, because as you know, we have to keep certain things private and to ourselves. But I hope this video will be helpful to anyone out there that is struggling with anything or that has been through you know, man, you know, any of this stuff that's quite hard. I hope this video will be helpful. I just want to let you know that you're not alone, and the first step is always in speaking out and seeking help. Yeah, otherwise let's dive right into the video, and I hope you'll enjoy it. Yeah, so hi and welcome back. So I wanted to choose today's topic to focus on my experience with fibroids, like I mentioned in my previous videos and also in my social media. I currently have fibroids, and mine are actually very big at the moment. I've been doing a couple of things to try help to shrink them, and that's why I thought, or I wanted to actually do a video on them, because you know, my experience with fibroids, it led to me doing a lot of research, trying to find out the causes of fibroids. If you have them, what options do you have, you know, to be able to lead a normal life. But it's funny how statistics show that actually women of African descent seem to be the most prone to fibroids. So whether you're in an African country, whether you're in Europe or any of those countries outside Africa, for as long as you're of African descent, the possibilities or the chances of you suffering or getting fibroids is actually very high. And up to now, most medical practitioners do not know what causes fibroids, although when you keep asking and when you dig further, you realize that fibroids, I think, are actually as a result of lifestyle. And that's just my opinion. You know, I could be wrong, but that's just the opinion I formed from my experience. Because when we spoke to you know, nurses, doctors, we asked them, and we wondered, why do most girls or women these days, or in our day and age, tend to suffer from fibroids? Why are they more prone as compared to, you know, back in the day? And they contributed some of the causes to, you know, our lifestyle, the things we eat, the things we drink, how we take care of ourselves, the products we are using. And aside from just being an effect of the lifestyle that we lead, it turns out that it's also genetic. You're prone to actually get fibroids if people in your line, so be it from your mother's side, from your father's side, if the women have suffered from fibroids, then you're very prone to suffering from them. And they tend to be basically found in women or girls who have reached reproductive age. So basically, when you start your period, when you become sexually active, just know the chances of you getting these masses, you know, it tends to increase. So I think that gives you a small glimpse into what brings them on. Like I said, no one knows what causes them, or you know, what brings them about, but at least in their opinion and from research, the medics seem to think it's an issue of lifestyle and an issue of genetics, yeah, the genes that we have. So now that we know what causes the fibroids and everything, of course the next thing we want to know is what solutions do we have to them, what can be done to help us, for those of us who have them, or to sort of like prevent or to narrow and limit the chances of getting fibroids. So the most, I think, used method to try and do away with fibroids is surgery. So this is basically medical surgery. So you go in and you know, you're operated on, kind of like having a C-section, and the fibroids are taken out. But I forgot to mention, this also depends on how big your fibroid is and where it's growing. If you watched my previous video, I mentioned that fibroids tend to grow in 3 places. So they could either grow directly inside your uterus, or within the muscle of the uterus, and then they could also grow outside the uterus. And then it also matters the direction of the growth. So they could be growing towards, so if at all the fibroids are outside or within the muscle, and then they're growing towards the uterus, they're pushing against all those muscles to try and enter into the uterus, then those are actually very, very serious fibroids that need to be dealt with before anything happens, before you want to try to have children. You know, they're the ones that cause lots of pain, they cause lots of cramps, they cause lots of pre-cramps. But then you'll have those fibroids that are growing outwards, so they're growing away from the uterus, and usually those will be you know, a bit less painful, you know. Then you also have those that are directly within the uterus. Now those ones are quite dangerous, because as and when you conceive, they will compete for the nutrients, they'll compete for the space with the growing baby within the uterus, and they are usually the leading cause of miscarriages in women, infertility as well. So it's important to take note of that. And also the size matters. A fibroid could be as small as, I think they say, a grape seed, and it could also be as big as a pumpkin. Yes, I know it's quite strange, but it could also grow to as big as a pumpkin. So usually those big fibroids are the ones that will be surgically removed. Now, as I mentioned, you have the option of going the surgical route, or there's also herbal medication. So right now we have most of these doctors, and they're actually medical doctors, but they choose to go the herbal way. They choose to use natural resources to sort of like deal with some of these diseases we suffer from. So currently I decided personally to go the natural way, and that's not to say that I'm taking concoctions of all these herbs and stuff. No, you realize that it's actually everyday things that we have in our kitchens that we can use to help us in this situation. An example is ginger, turmeric, apples, spinach, cucumbers, you know, all these natural healthy foods are what we need to deal with you know, some of these issues of fibroids that we suffer from. So I've been juicing, I think, for the past month. I started last month. I decided to start juicing, and I'm juicing mostly green foods. So these are green fruits, and also trying to eat more leafy foods, so trying to eat my vegetables. It's not easy, especially for someone who is coming from a diet that's mainly beef based, and because I love my meat, but I've had to cut down on the amount of meat I take in. Actually, if I'm even being honest, I think it's been about 3 months since I last ate beef. So I'm basically shifting between eating fish and chicken, because this is actually white meat and it's more healthy than the beef, which is red meat. So you realize that they say one of the best ways to deal with all these things around us, any sickness that you have, is to try and prevent it. So you know, they say prevention is better than cure. So these are all preventative measures that we can employ to sort of like help us before this thing blows out of proportion, or before it goes haywire. Yeah, so what we take in into our bodies contributes a whole lot to what we release and to what comes out. And me, I have learned that I need to be conscious of what I'm taking into my body. So as I've mentioned, I switched up what I eat. You'll find that of late my diet is mainly leaning towards the vegetables, the greens. I stopped dairy. I do not do any dairy, so I don't take milk. I cut out ice cream. I don't do yogurt. But to sort of like substitute those, I now do almond milk or soy milk, because those are completely, you know, plant-based and seed-based, so they're better than dairy. What else? So yeah, with that, I was talking about the ways you can either prevent the fibroids, or what you can do when you have the fibroids. Then what are some of the things that happen to us when we have fibroids, or what are the effects of having fibroids? Now, these are actually all negative. There's no positive side to having fibroids. So number one, fibroids are among the number one cause of infertility in women, because like I mentioned in the beginning, they compete for the same nutrients that a fetus or a growing baby would compete for in the uterus. Number two, fibroids are also one of the leading cause of miscarriages in women. And again, like I mentioned, depending on the size of the fibroid, depending on where the fibroid is growing. I've had stories of women and some friends of mine who have told me that they indeed suffer from fibroids, but they've managed to carry these pregnancies to full term. But also, aside from causing miscarriages, they also cause one of the leading complications during a pregnancy, in the event that you know, whereas you manage to carry the baby full term, you could have a very difficult pregnancy. Yeah, so that's also a cause. They also cause very terrible cramps. They could affect your cycle during menstruation, so you could either have very heavy flow that's coupled with very terrible cramps, or you could have inconsistent periods. So basically, you could miss your period for about 2-3 months. I've had stories of this. So I don't know, it's not something that I realized many people talk about, and yet at the same time, fibroids are, you know, one of the major things that women suffer from, especially women of reproductive health, or when they've reached that stage of reproduction and giving birth and everything. But it's also possible to live with them, like I mentioned. There are those who wouldn't want to have them surgically removed, because the thing is, even when they're surgically removed, the chances of them growing back is actually very high, very high, because they're just tumors that grow. So they're just muscles whose regrowth rate is still high. So what most people decide to do is, of course, to go the natural way, because when you go the natural way, you're trying to shrink them. So they grow smaller, they grow smaller, they grow smaller, until they reach a certain stage where the reoccurrence of growth is minimized as compared to when you permanently cut them out. Because to have them surgically removed is also not easy, and most doctors do not want to take that direction. And in my experience, most of the gynecologists I visited didn't want to go the surgical route, because I didn't have kids yet, and their reasoning was that in the process of trying to cut out those fibroids, there's a possibility that the uterus lining, I've forgotten what it's called, but there's a possibility that that lining could be damaged. And once that lining is damaged, the chances of you getting pregnant are actually very slim. So if you're a woman who hasn't yet given birth, you're usually encouraged to actually try to get pregnant, because they also believe that once you get pregnant, the fibroids tend to shrink, because like I said, they're competing for the nutrients, they're competing for oxygen. So basically, if you cut off oxygen supply to these fibroids, their growth is stunted and stopped. So most doctors will tell you to try to conceive, try to have a baby. So maybe once you've had your baby, 1 or 2, then you can consider going for surgery. If you're a woman who has reached the stage of you've had your kids and you're sure you're not going to want to try for another child, then your uterus is removed altogether. They just take it out, because like I mentioned, the chances of fibroids growing back, even when they're removed surgically, is very high. So in my opinion, that would be like a permanent solution, which you could consider after you've tried to use all these measures and they've refused, but also because you want to have your children first before you can look at, you know, taking your uterus out. That is usually, I think, a very big decision that should be looked at as the last decision, like a do or die decision. Yeah, that is when you can go that route. I don't know. I just wanted to come and share that little information that I gleaned along the way, and hope that it can give someone out there a starting point in case you don't know where to start from. But I also want to share the details of the Dr. Christine. She's the one in charge of healing. It's called Healing Naturally Together, and she basically uses like I said, everyday foods, natural foods that we use. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention is to cut out caffeine. So if you do have fibroids, but I think generally, because we're told not to drink lots of coffee, we're told not to drink lots of those carbonated sodas because they contain caffeine. So currently what I drink is a beverage of pounded rosemary, okra leaves, yeah, and the 3 beverages I also shared in my previous video. That is what I'm now currently drinking to substitute the tea, because I do not do tea leaves. Tea leaves have caffeine, but there are certain teas that are being sold that do not have caffeine. So I haven't tried these out yet, but I'm going to leave suggestions down below, so please be sure to check down in the description box for options of teas you could drink that do not contain caffeine. I'll also leave the number for Healing Naturally Together in the description box so that you can call them if you want any more information. Like I said in the beginning, everything I have shared with you is scanty. I can actually tell it's scanty, but that's because it's information that I've tried to glean from here and there. But always seek the opinion of a medical practitioner. Do your research, read. Google is free of charge. Type in all these words and read up on these things that affect us but that we are afraid to talk about, or that, you know, we go through and wouldn't want to talk about. But remember, they say knowledge is power, so empower yourself with information. Have all the info you need to help sort you out when you're facing any of these issues. So like I mentioned at the beginning, this is the video I'm going to shoot relating to this topic, because I don't want to delve deeper into it, because I'm also still dealing with some of these things, and I don't want to speak from a point where I'm giving you uninformed information, or I'm giving you stories that I haven't gone through. I'm also still on a journey to recovery. I'm not yet where I want to be, but I also don't want to share so many details because, you know, it's a private journey I'm taking together with my family. But I also don't want to leave you hanging without, you know, having a starting point or having a reference point. Yeah, so I hope this video has been helpful. If you're in pain, talk to someone. If you need information, go see a gynecologist. Do not suffer, do not die alone, do not suffer alone. But yes, thank you so much for the guys who enjoy my videos, for those who encouraged me to actually speak out and share my experience on this issue. I hope it has been helpful. Yeah, so please subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, like it, just show me all the love. Like let's have this community where we can, you know, give each other cyber hugs, give each other cyber love, and just be there for each other. Basically be there for each other. Yeah, but thank you once again for watching. Yeah, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.